It began in Africa.
Yeah.
We are controlling transmission.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you say?
Yeah. 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 Okay.
Hello and welcome to Afrospace. My name is Nyasha Grace, and as usual, I am joined by my co-host, that's Adetunji Omotola. Afrospace is the Pan-African show that we bring to you weekly to profile what's happening on the continent in terms of business, politics, culture, as well as what's happening with our African diaspora who are spread across the world. On today's program, we're going to be speaking to somebody, a firebrand, who is somebody who is seasoned and who wears the t-shirt in and out in the tourism industry in South Africa. And her name is Mbali Gomez Zulu. Just to tell you a little bit about Mbali, she is currently Chief Executive Officer for African Travel Innovators. And she's also been a part of the EMEA Regional Client Operations as a client operations manager. And she describes herself as somebody who's demonstrated a history of working in leisure and travel. And she's skilled in catering, negotiation, business planning, operations management, and sales. And she possesses strong business development management, and with the diploma that she got in sales and marketing from Demlin. I mean, Bali, you've been basically in the travel and tourism industry for many years now, and it's a great pleasure to have you come and talk to us about what's happened in the industry with COVID and what we predict going forward for the industry. So thank you for coming, and a big welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Nasha, and thank you so much, Adetunji, for having me today.
You're welcome. Mbali, you're the MD of African Travel Innovations. What I will abbreviate, I don't know if that's what you do. I like the ATR, the abbreviation, African Travel Innovations. Now, can you tell our viewers about your organization and also what space you occupy in the tourism industry?
So, Adetunji, I've been in the travel and tourism space for the last 18 years with a large focus on the African continent, working for a lot of the major brands, South African brands such as Sun International, Soho Hotels, Protea Marriott, as well as some international brands with HRG and American Express. And what I noticed over the years was that there was a gap for people like me who were professionals, who had a passion for Africa, who understood the continent and understood how to market to the various countries, with some of them different and I don't want to necessarily say smaller, but more independent product owners and businesses throughout South Africa and as well as the Middle East. It then dawned to me that operating and putting together a consulting business within that scope, where I'd be able to share my skill set, not just with my one employer, but be able to expose myself to more products and more clients, and be able to bring all the years of knowledge and experience that I had traveling the continent to various providers and be able to assist them with a really rounded 360 marketing, sales, strategic and project implementation plan to take their business further. And as the years went, we really started to see that there was a gap where people wanted the business development element as well. And, you know, the one thing I think you will know as well, coming from Nigeria, and we've also got Nasha with us, with all of us as Africans, we have so many similarities, and yet there seems to be so much that keeps us apart in terms of technology and access. And for me, that is where African Travel Innovators sits. It's about being able to bring to the forefront a skill set that is really unique in the sense that we have been able to cater marketing as well as business expansion plans for products within travel into new dynamics, into new countries. We hold their hand as they go through this transition period, and assist them with identifying partners and identifying how to be able to access the market. And also because I love travel personally. Anyone who knows me knows at any opportunity I can get, even when I'm traveling for business, I'll always add some leisure. And we found that we had other brands that were not in the travel and tourism space who wanted assistance with just how to navigate that space within other countries for their brands, how to pull that into their experiences and client engagements. And we've been also being able to facilitate them on that side as well. So really boutique type of DMC assistance for some of the bigger brands that we deal with, and being able to kind of help them through that. And then last but not least, part of the hats that I wear as well is within the grading space, which is the quality assurance space. And that I've done now also for about 10 years, where we assist, up and coming SMEs and business owners that want to get into the B&B, hotel, motel space, to make sure that they meet the minimum criteria they require for grading. So if they would like to achieve a 3-star, what does that encompass? How do we help them to get prepared? And then we lead them on to the rest of the tools that are available within African Travel Innovators. So if they need business development or access to market, we then help them to cater and put together a really structured plan of how they will then attack the market. And I know attack is like such an aggressive word, but how they would be able to go out there and position them and really give them the edge so that they can compete with some of these bigger brands that are out there. So in a nutshell, I wear a couple of different hats, but all within the tourism space. And I think for me, my vision and my dream is for African Travel Innovators to be synonymous with anything travel related within Africa, but also to be able to lend a helping hand because of the years of knowledge and expertise to other business owners that want to grow within the continent.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's fantastic and really just very impressive history and just the work that you're doing in that space. Let's go back to the beginning for you, Mbali, and just get an understanding. How did you decide on actually choosing a career in tourism? And you've already mentioned you love traveling, but I wonder, is that where the love for the industry lies for you?
Well, I think, for me, Nyasha, I was really blessed. And I think I was trying to find the right word, but blessed is the right word to use. My mom was an entrepreneur from when I was very young, and she traveled a lot through the African continent. So the kids I went to school to were daydreaming about going to Europe, and I was daydreaming about going to Zambia and going to Botswana, to the Chobe areas, and going to Zambia, and finally going to Mozambique and eating seafood fresh out the ocean. And she really inspired with me, not just the love of travel itself, but how travel exposes you to different people and cultures and experiences and really grows you as an individual. What you take away from each trip and each engagement when you meet new people grows you as a human being. And through her travels, she was able to share that love with us. And I remember I went into corporate and I went into the finance sector, but it just, when I got into finance, it didn't sing. I didn't get excited. And then I went into recruitment. And one day I had a meeting, and this gentleman happened to be part of a hotel chain. And, I was telling him about how we can assist with his recruitment needs. And he looked at me and said, would you ever consider, hospitality, a change in terms of industry and career and just trying something else? And I was like, well, I don't know. It's like a friend of mine is looking. Would you go for the interview? I'm like, great. I came here to sell people and staff. And I'm actually, turned around that I got headhunted. And I went in for an interview at the then Intercontinental San Towers. And the rest is history, Nyasha, being able to. And my joke is I feel like I get paid to travel, because what I do is about going out there and discovering new places and doing business in new countries. So it really does just, I think you get hooked after a couple of times packing your bags. It just becomes one of those things. You don't mind living out of a suitcase. And I think some of my most memorable stories probably come from all the trips that I've taken, especially through the continent. And as the years went, I knew that I wanted to focus on Africa specifically because I wanted to make a difference within Africa. And because travel was something that I think the only other thing I get so excited about outside of travel Africa, as my kids would say, is just travel Africa and food. So travel gives me a chance to meet new Africans and eat food, and to think strategically. And I think, from who I am as a person has been the best fit ever. So when you do what you're passionate about, it's not work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. When you mentioned food, I was hungry. I got hungry immediately. Anyway, okay. So, Mbali, you've been in the tourism space with many powerful brands for a number of years. Now, in your view, what are the biggest selling points for African tourism on the one hand, and what are some of the areas that you think need attention for tourism, for example, in South Africa and Africa at large? And I asked this question specifically because I know that South Africa will be opening up for international travel on the 1st of October, which coincides with Nigeria's Independence Day. So can you give us a sense of the biggest selling points for African tourism, and also what are some of the areas that need urgent attention for tourism in South Africa and the rest of the continent?
I think, Tunji, from an African perspective, there's just so much we still have to show the world. Recently, I engaged in the UNWTO Inspire Africa Challenge. And while I was doing some of my research, I asked somebody the question, why do you travel? And it was really just about how to position what we were looking to do. But what became evident to me is that people travel for heritage and culture. People travel for the other people, same as people buy from people. And I think the wealth of our cultures and heritage in Africa, over and above the scenic beauty that we have, really makes Africa a must destination. You can have from your first world experience of major cities in certain of our major African countries, all the way down to really what it feels like to be in homelands and rural areas. And when we say rural, not rural because we're talking poverty, rural as a choice, as a way of life. People who are still choosing to honor the older ways of living in a more simplified way. And I think there's so much with regards to that content, that heritage, those stories, and that narrative that still needs to get out into the rest of the world. I don't think we haven't even gotten to the tip of the iceberg when we talk about what's available. Recently, I had an amazing opportunity as well to chat to a gentleman in Nigeria that focuses on domestic tourism. And we talked about a movie that came out called Out North, and how people were amazed at some of the scenes that those places happened to be in Nigeria. And what it showed me, leading on to what the gaps are, is that even us as Africans do not know what we have right in our own backyard. There's aspirations to travel out of the African continent, but there is so much for us to see locally. So when we talk about gaps, I think for me, the key gap would be us as Africans doing domestic travel and understanding what domestic travel is, and also looking at African travel as, and kind of repositioning it to be right up there as a sought after destination, as much as we want to go to Europe, as much as we want to go to Asia, for an example. We want to go learn all these other cultures, but we also have so many varied cultures that are right here on our continent. And I think we also have many destinations and places that people can visit on our African soil and be able to encounter more. So number one is an education process. I think there also needs to be a lot of support within the tourism ministries for some of our smaller businesses. You can talk about all of these experiences, but once you land in country, there has to be somebody on the ground who's able to fulfill what the guest expectation is. In travel, especially for leisure, you don't just sell a bed. What we sell is not tangible. We are selling an experience, we're selling memories, we're selling an emotive kind of response to just a bed and bricks and mortar. And if that needs to happen, we need to also make sure that we have service providers on the ground that are able to fulfill on some of those expectations, that are able to really take that individual traveler and show them something different and create memories with them. So I think from a training perspective, from a product perspective, as well as just from a support and infrastructure, I think we also see a lot of, African countries who don't take travel as seriously. And when you look at the numbers that, from a global perspective, that have dropped in different economies because of travel that basically became non-existent. I mean, we had a client that traveled 95% of the year, and for 4 months there was no travel. We are now starting to see what a big part tourism plays in the GDP of a country, into the economy of a country, and how getting
Vali, I mean,
travel,
in fact, that kind of speaks into my next question. I'm sorry to cut you off there, but perhaps you could just marry your response with this in mind as well, because my next question is talking about the GDP effects and the pandemic and how that's impacted the tourism industry. So obviously the COVID-19 pandemic saw that the 270 million GDP that tourism industry contributes yearly into South Africa being, reduced by at least 70 billion, and that's a lot of money. So just, give us the level of impact and the devastation that, this has caused on the industry as a whole.
Nyasha, it's really, I think if you'd have to take each specific region and look at it in isolation to really be able to understand what the massive impact is. So I think we start with the certain areas that were a little bit slower to lock down. And obviously with South Africa, with our lockdown happening so quickly, and also with us having a large international market, that really hurt a lot of the service providers in country, and it made it really challenging for us to be able to keep certain businesses open. So you've seen airlines that have gone into business rescue, we've seen hotels and hotel groups going into business rescue, and we've seen other entities completely closing down and not being able to actually keep their doors open or to be able to take care of their staff. So globally, if I give you a nice average, we've seen about a 50% drop year on year in comparison to April, up until the April to end of August of 2019 to April to end of August of 2020. And depending on which area you're in, it obviously the devastation becomes worse. Now, for South Africa, there is a slow opening coming up on the 1st of October, but obviously the question then comes back to find out what is the appetite for people to travel. And how are we going to be able to kind of see that coming back up? Another big one I think we've seen in terms of companies that are struggling, Virgin Atlantic has had to really relook their strategy. In Australia, they went into business rescue. There were some talks of what they would look like at the end of this, also looking at their UK operations. So from a travel perspective, I really get the sense that even when borders open up, there isn't going to be, this kind of swift demand. And I do think that for now, we will still feel the COVID-19 effects probably on for the next 2 years. So for the next 24 months, from a travel perspective, it's going to be really difficult. I think we are only anticipating about 30 to 40% of numbers coming back towards the end of 2020. And when we look at South Africa as a whole, the team from the economics was saying that they only anticipate that we will only really start to pull back our growth by 2025. So we have a long way to go yet in being able to do that. And I think it's going to be really, really difficult. The devastation, we've seen Thomas Cook close down. We've seen Flight Centre also having challenges. And I don't think, Nyasha, that we are at the end of that cycle. I think there's still much more to come. There's also an anticipation that as travel opens up, what is it going to look like? Will leisure travel want to go out there? But we are going to be experiencing different types of airfare costs. We are experiencing different types of setups and operations at airports, as well as with service providers. So you'll see that some of the, the busier airports like Dubai, and I must also commend the DRC as well as Rwanda in Africa, who have taken huge strides from a safety perspective and make sure that the protocol is there Tanzania opened up their borders first as African countries to encourage East African travel and really try to claw back some of the losses from loss of international travel. But for majority of the African robust tourism countries, we are really going to see this continue probably for another 18 months.
Okay. Look, Yasha, we have 7 minutes to go. We have 5 more questions. So should we, should I ask the next question? Do we have enough time?
Yes, we can. What I thought is perhaps let's get to the end of this meeting, and if we still want to continue, then we can reuse the same password to finish up those questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Mbali, is there any recovery in sight for the industry in the short term? I mean, the borders, the airports are opening up. Are we going to see a swift recovery in terms of where we were prior to the pandemic? What's your take?
Tunji, not to where we were prior. I definitely don't see that happening swiftly, but I do see a lot of domestic picking up. And I think that if we all focus on the domestic market, that's going to be an opportunity for us to claw back some of the loss of ground we've had during the COVID process. We need to understand that international travel is not going to be where it was. Definitely not for the next 2 years, and that the local buyers are going to be our most important buyers as well. Leaving outside of local, it then goes within regional and then intra-African. So for me, that is how I see the tiers working. Domestic travel first, then looking at regional travel, and then coming into Africa-wide travel, and then potentially as Africa-wide opens up, we should be opening up the rest of the world too. So from Spain perspective, we're seeing a lot of people are, playing different strategies, but focusing on domestic.
So globally, I mean, you've already spoken to this, just the impact on the industry globally as well has been quite devastating. Are there any countries who have sort of moved into a recovery path, and any examples and templates to look up to?
Unfortunately, Nyasha, not really. Tanzania, as I mentioned, opened up first, but there wasn't really a lot of visitors coming in or travelers for that matter, because all the other countries were still in a lockdown period. China did start to see some growth, and for them, their focus was on domestic, as I mentioned, and they started to see a lot more domestic products being consumed by local citizens because they couldn't go anywhere else. And as a result, Chinese tourism products started to really focus and hone in on, their locals and seeing how they can sell products to them. Germany also had a bit of an uphill, and they started to open up a little bit and wanted to push out and get travel going, but then they had to quickly call back. And I think with what's happening in Europe right now, having come out of the European summer, I don't see that changing for Europe. In France, from a domestic point of view, they were not forced to wear masks for a period of time, and the beaches were full during the summertime. But now we can see what's happening within Europe with numbers rising and the curve going right back up, that there is now the worry of what happens in terms of the second round of infections and what's going to happen from there. So I think definitely we all have to be resilient. I don't think there's anybody really who's been able to crack it. I think the closest would probably be China, in the sense that they've seen where to go. And I see a lot of other countries, go in the same suit. And I think South Africa will definitely be following. I've already seen our local tourism owners focusing a lot more on the domestic market, cutting rates that were initially, if you looked at properties that were in the 5-star range, the prices were so exorbitant that a local South African would never be able to afford it. And now they are bringing all of that back in line. So I'm quite curious to see as well how that strategy is going to unfold for us over the next couple of months. And I think if as tourism entities we focus on that particular view, looking at domestic, looking at local travel and spend, we will be able to start to see some growth. And perhaps we might be that story, Yasha, within a couple of months' time if we can get it right.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Fascinating story, analysis you've given us about the industry. You've traveled around Africa quite extensively for many years. People say the best parts of Africa are the coastal regions, the Zanzibars, and Cape Town and all that. In your view, is it interland or is it coastal? And if so, which countries do you think give some of the best experience in terms of coastal versus interland?
Oh, wow. I don't like having to choose. I'm just like,
Yeah, we're
let's have
putting
it
you on
all.
the spot.
We have some beautiful coastal, but I think interland is just extraordinary. I've had an opportunity to go to Cameroon, and we went up their coast, but it was the coast off of where they have the oil rig set up. I just can't remember the name, but I'll find it for you. I had never seen a black beach in my life. The water looked like it was liquid black satin, and obviously clear, but because the rocks around that entire area were all dark because of the oil that was sitting under the soil. It just made for the most scenically, visually appealing place I'd ever seen. It felt like I was lost somewhere in a little dreamland. I've been to Cote d'Ivoire, to the rainforest there, and just the beauty and the species that you can find. And then there are cities like Senegal that are just, if I had to think of a word for Senegal, I'd just say romantic. They have a bit of coastal, but it's also about the art and the music and the flair. And then you go to Ethiopia, which is not, it's landlocked. But, there you can do the 9-day tour and see all of the old churches that have been built into the mountainside. So, Tunji, you'd have to let me choose at least 3 countries that I could put in my basket. But I definitely, with and not from just a patriarchal perspective, but I think South Africa has really positioned themselves well from a tourism perspective, and they've made sure to upgrade and upskill and understand the importance of tourism. So you see that we are tourist ready, but there are places that are off the beaten track here in South Africa as well, like the Valley of Desolation, which really makes you feel like a speck of dust in the greater scheme of things. Going to the West Coast National Park during the Namaqual Daisyland season just to see that natural splendor. I just feel like Mother Nature is showing off when it comes to Africa. There are so many places that you can explore that can give you a little bit of everything. From beaches to wildlife to food, food cultures, yassa in Senegal, and fried plantain in Nigeria, and grilled tilapia in Ghana. The list is endless. We are cornucopia of experiences from top to bottom, and in this one continent. So, Tunji, as I was saying, with South Africa, the way that we have adapted the country to tourism really does put us in the forefront. We've understood the value tourism brings, so we have a lot more developed tourism products. But that's not just South Africa. I think in the Southern African region, if you look at Zimbabwe and Zambia with the Victoria Falls and how they have built up that community and chain around that particular product offering, and ways of uplifting there. But there's so many other things to discover. I've had the opportunity to drive through Botswana all the way through Zimbabwe, discovering Bulawayo, Harare, taking myself all the way to the Vic Falls and crossing over to the Livingstone side of Zambia. So it definitely, Nyasha, it was one of the best road trips ever. And I think the best part of it is that all these countries are interconnected by road, so we can do it. And when we then go a little bit, into the central parts, I've had an amazing opportunity in the DRC with Kinshasa, and having an experience there. And though Angola is more, in that central region as well, it gives you a vibe of being in a completely different space. Ile Luanda and the beautiful restaurants and the nightlife. I think we partied until the sun came up, quite literally. Wow. We left when the sun was out. And then further up in Northern Africa, where you've got Tunisia, you've got Morocco, you have those cultures where the food is so different. And even just how the heritage and how they are keeping their heritage alive till today just inspires you to want to go and visit those places. And if you look at Morocco, I think people own a tangine or have cooked something that was close to like a Moroccan inspired dish, and perhaps they've never been there. So to go there and really just enjoy and immerse yourself in the food, the smells, and the culture is something else. So, like I said, Tunji, we are a cornucopia here in Africa. We have something for absolutely everybody. And if you had the time to explore it, from Cape to Cairo, you would leave with an amazing amount of wealth and knowledge, and I think an utterly different and a huge respect for the people of Africa.
Wow. Absolutely wow. I think you
Powerful
said that so
ambassador.
beautifully.
I think that's what I want to be, Tunji. So we definitely need to do that at Tunji and work on making Mali the African ambassador. But we definitely have so much to share. And I just want to be a part of exposing the world to that.
Yeah, just a quick one. I mean, I know we've run out of time, but I'm really curious. You mentioned in one of your responses that, the challenge that we have as Africa is that we just haven't exposed our beautiful places enough. How do we go about that? How does a mom and pop, lodge or, tourist resort kind of put themselves out there? How do we sell ourselves better, Mbali?
Definitely one of the key things, and thank you for asking me because that's my passion. You can even see my body language change there. That's my absolute passion. I think, Nyasha, it's being able to understand what your unique identifier is. And, we've always said our unique selling point, but you have to be able to look at what it is that you have. And I feel so many people want to emulate what they see in the West or in bigger establishments, and they move away from the small things that they do. So I think the one thing is, you need to do the basics brilliantly from a service offering perspective, from a product perspective. Keep it simple, but do the simple stuff really well. And then from a marketing point of view, social media has really done amazingly for smaller brands who'd never had the big budgets, to go above the line advertising. And you can really work social media well to position your product. And with the analytics that we have available, you can pinpoint your target market to Anyasha Grace. We can discover, we can speak to you based on your food interest. We can speak to you based on what pages you like to visit. We can speak to you based on how you like to take care of yourself. And I think just investing a little and understanding that, and it might not be moms and pops who get it, but we have young people and the youth. I mean, I have children. I think they just keep me young, but I also steal a wealth of information from them. The apps that they utilize, how they do their videos, which places they choose to buy. And the more you engage, the more you start to understand what actually drives them. And young people have a big influence on buying power. They might not buy themselves, but they will definitely influence their parents. So for a mom and pop stop, if you are listening and you have access to a young person, pick their brain, ask them what they think about your product, showcase it to them, get some fresh ideas, and put a little bit of money away. Social media marketing can happen from as little as 1,000 Rand, from as little as $100 and maybe that doesn't sound like a little, but if you're looking at a big marketing campaign, that amount of money can really do a huge amount of wonders. Make it easy, make it accessible. People want to have a very quick engagement once they've decided to buy. So make sure that the systems that you put in place make it easy for people to do so.
Thank you very much, Mbali. You've given us a tour of Africa in less than 1 hour. Fascinated by the Cameroon that you talked about. Interestingly, I was ambassador for Cameroon for a few weeks last year without even having ever been to Cameroon. So that means I need to go to Cameroon. So thank you for coming onto Afrospace to share with us your passion for Africa, your tourism projects, and what you've been doing, and what is going to happen when we open up, eventually open up in a few days' time. And we look forward to seeing you again, hopefully on Thursday, October 1st. Nigeria turns 60. In fact, Botswana turns, I think, 54 tomorrow. And then Nigeria turns 60 the following day. And then Guinea turns 62 the following day. And then I think Uganda is up next, and then Zambia. So plenty of
week for
food
Africa.
and wine that is going to happen. So thank you for coming. So as
Yeah.
we normally do on
Tunji,
Afrospace,
sorry, Tunji, can I interrupt you? Bali, before you go, I just,
Yes.
maybe this could help travelers and, people watching the show to decide what to do with the next vacation. Where are you choosing to be on your next vacation? Where are you traveling to?
That's Yasha, I am actually traveling this weekend.
Oh, wow.
So this weekend I am traveling to Tabazimbi, which is about the northwest province of South Africa, and I am taking my teenagers to the bush for a bit of a game experience, and we'll do some game drives and bushwalks and just some silence, and absorbing nature before we hit the last school term. And I think a couple of weeks before that, I'd been in Hoedspruit. So I think the bush has been big on my kind of agenda for the last 2 months. And then we will be doing the garden route this December. And we have decided we're taking the full ride down and having an experience and stop along the way. So this weekend, Marakele National Park. And then in December, we are going to be doing Garden Route National Park, which is Tsitsikamma, Knysna, and Wilderness. So we will be by the coast as well as in the forest, and then we're going to end off in PE, so we can do a little bit of that experience as well and go to Addo Elephant Park. So that is me in the next couple of weeks.
That's a lot. That's a travel. You are actually a travel guide,
Yeah.
You're a travel guide, encyclopedic travel guide.
Yeah,
So,
Tunji,
so
I want to
we're
throw the
locked
same
up.
question at you, Tunji. Let me not let you off the hook as well.
Yes.
Let's find out from you.
Look,
What's your next travel destination?
we're planning to go to Cape Town, or rather Stellenbosch next week, Lanzarote Hotel and Spa.
Ooh, lies.
In fact, we're planning to do a tasting in the cellar with the winemaker. And then for December, we're looking at a place called Sankofa Beach House that is owned by a Japanese-American Ghanaian. He had his children in Nigeria, but he's been in Ghana for over 20 years. He's now a Ghanaian citizen. It's by the coast, it's right there, and it's very rustic. And they don't carry a lot of inventory, so you tell them what you want to have the day before, the night before, then they prepare it for you. And it's such a beautiful place, gazebos. The road is not fascinating to get there, but it's equidistant to a place called the White Sands Resort Hotel. So I'm looking forward to going to Ghana. And not as exotic and diverse as Bali's, but Ghana and Cape Town.
Okay.
So, and you, Nisha?
I wish I could name my list as long as you guys' one is, but I'll be in Durban in December. So yeah, doing that for the second time.
Place.
And yeah, I just want to, just
Lovely.
explore a little bit more. The last time was didn't get much done, but yeah, looking forward to be by the water.
I'm going to
Durban is
send you some
beautiful
notes.
because you're not far from places like Amazimtoti, Balito, and all those beautiful places. So yeah, from me, Adetunji Omotola, it's Odabo, Kachifo, Segobe.
All right, and for me, Nyasha Grace, I will say goodbye in Shona, which is my Zimbabwean language, and that is Sarai Shakanaka.
All right. From me, Mbali Mgomezulu, Mbongile Nonke, Nsaleni Kahle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It began in Africa.